After the opening of the Olympic Village of the Paris Games in Saint-Denis, Macron commented on his recent words about the possible dispatch of NATO troops to Ukraine, and called every word he said on this topic weighted and deliberate. The Kremlin got seriously excited, and Putin turned on the turbo blackmail mode during his address, waving nuclear missiles towards Paris and Brussels. However, NATO was not impressed. UK Chief of Defence Staff Tony Radakan said Putin could not want war with NATO because Russia would lose, and lose quickly, after receiving an overwhelming response. However, the boy is determined. If Lombroso had studied the faces of the listeners who filled the hall of Gostiny Dvor, he would have been impressed. Putin managed to bring the post-Soviet population to absolute degradation, where meat assaults are applauded, and the monstrous losses of personnel are called combat hardening and invaluable experience. But Putin is not satisfied with these results of degradation. He announces a change of elites. It is the scumbag marauders who now must take the positions of educating young people, leading regions and enterprises. The sycophants of the past call for the leader are no longer satisfied, give him pure cannibals. With him, it's not scary to press the nuclear button. Such people will not retreat. They can be trusted with both the cave and their own skin. By the way, it was not for nothing that the broadcast directors strenuously avoided showing Soluanov's face. Pain and despair appeared on it when the bald man, with the ease of a loader, threw promises of money distribution into the hall. That's how it was read on his mournful face. Are you going to fight, your ratness? 3 skins to tear. Of course, war requires funds, and schemers are being pressured by sanctions from different sides. And not only sanctions. Due to Ukrainian attacks on refineries, Russia introduced a temporary ban on gasoline exports from March 1 and increased the standards for the sale of diesel fuel at exchange trading. At the same time, India is already looking for a replacement for Russian oil, which it will buy for now, but cheaper than the sanction price ceiling. But it still needs to be delivered and go and find such tankers. Schematicians are sad. Meanwhile, 4 NATO countries have not ruled out sending their military to the territory of Ukraine, Estonia, Lithuania, the Netherlands and Britain. True, it is not the time yet for the Netherlands, but there is already a small number of British troops in Ukraine, although there are no plans for a large-scale deployment, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak clarified. And Pentagon Chief Austin even predicted an inevitable war with Russia in the event of Ukraine's defeat. The Baltic countries are worried that they could become the next victims of Russian aggression. They know Putin, Austin noted. They know what he is capable of. And frankly, if Ukraine loses, I really believe that NATO will go to war with Russia. In addition, the question will arise about whether the United States can be considered a reliable ally and partner, the head of the U.S. Department of Defense added. During the days of mourning of the intra-fascist opposition for the death of Alexei Navalny, his widow Yulia slipped into the European Parliament with a heartwarming speech about how to fight the monstrous mafia regime and help the good Russians by collaborating with them. And now MEPs have called on Russians not to confuse Russians with the belligerent, autocratic and kleptocratic regime of the Kremlin. It turns out that this regime is just a mafia regime, and not at all neo-fascist and neo-Bolshevik. It turns out that the war in Ukraine is by no means an imperial aggressive one on the part of Russia, but a clan mafia one. The time for introducing this false agenda has been chosen well. If you do not accept it now, it means that you do not have the heart and empathy for the grieving opposition widow and single mother. If European politicians continue to follow this Lubyanka pipe, reputational losses cannot be avoided. On March 1, the final round of the battle for a sovereign internet begins in the cave. Roskomnadzor is attacking VPN services head-on, as the main evil, without eliminating which other restrictions on enemy resources, for example, YouTube, are impossible. Now any advertising of services that allow you to bypass blocking is prohibited. Stigmatization of information resources hostile to the Kremlin and pupation are slowly but surely working. Deep scientists recoil from Western mass media, plunging into the darkness of ignorance raised to the level of fear. The boys adopted the old Bolshevik pattern. This is our last and decisive battle. Makic is inevitable. And in order to avoid doubts about the victorious boys' correctness, the cave must be tightly closed, and the brain of the Socopithecus must be firmly beaten off. With such an army of degenerates, you can rush to Berlin and Washington. Stop drinking and start skiing. It's just a stone's throw from our native Alaska.